Okay. So, good afternoon after this delay. Sorry for that. And I'm happy everyone could make it to Zoom. So, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. This is the third session in our series, The Future of Online Participation in Smart Cities. My name is Fernanda Campagnucci. I'm a postdoctoral researcher here at the University of Munster, and I'll be your host for today's session. We are delighted to have you for this discussion, which is presented by Brazil Chair in the Brazil Center at the University of Munster in Germany. This series brings together experts from academia, civil society, and government to explore the key issues shaping the future of online participation, particularly in this context of smart cities. This webinar is part of a larger project, which is Scope Research Project, State Capacity in Smart Cities for Online Participation. And this project is focusing on the role of the state capacity in enabling meaningful online participation in smart cities. I invite you all to visit our website to check on the previous sessions and the materials that are to be launched. So you can go to scope.uni.munster.de. So the link will be here also in the chat. And we are also proud to be supported by CAPES and our institutional partners, including International Digital Dialogues of the German Federal Ministry for Digital and Transport, and from Goethe Institute in São Paulo. So many thanks to everyone who made this webinar possible, especially our colleagues from Brazil Center, Professor Norbert Kerstin, who is our host here at the Institute for Political Science at the University of Munster. Now, I'll give floor to Jorge Machado without further ado. He will moderate the session. Jorge is a professor in the Public Policy Management Program at the University of São Paulo, and he's one of the coordinators of the Collaboratory of Development and Participation, which stands for Collab USP. He holds a PhD in sociology from the University of Granada and completed his postdoctoral research in the Department of Political Science at the Unicamp, the State University of Campinas in Brazil. And he's here now in Germany at the Zeppelin University as a visiting professor. So, George, you have the floor, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Welcome to panel discussion, Participatory Smart Cities Modeling. I will do just a short introduction, then you will hear our speakers. Cities are under increasing pressure to become smarter, more efficient, and more sustainable. The concept of smart cities encompasses a broad range of ideas and technologies aimed to improving urban living. Tools like artificial intelligence, digital twins, and augmented reality can optimize city operations, resources use, and improve quality of life. These technologies allow us to model, visualize, and manage urban environments with a level unimaginable just a decade ago. But can these technologies also serve to foster civic engagement and support democratic city planning? How to harness the transformative potential of these technologies while addressing critical risks like those related to algorithmic bias, surveillance, lack of transparency and accountability, as well the risk to growing digital divide. In short, how can we ensure that technology serves as a democratizing force rather than a tool of exclusion? And what does civic participation look in the advanced urban modeling? This webinar will address the opportunities, challenges, and risks associated with leveraging algorithmic simulations and urban imaging for participatory urban planning. We'll discuss both the innovative possibilities of these tools and the critical skills and frameworks that governments need to implement them effectively and inclusively. We invite our panelists to help us to unpack these questions and share their insights. I encourage all of you watching this live session. I have some people here. I hope come more people with us. To submit your questions in the chat. So we can start with our first speaker, Ariel Etienne. He's an expert in geospatial information technology and a member of the OSGeo board, where he serves as vice president for Latin America. He's the chair of the United Nations Committee of OSGeo, Open Source, Geo, and the CEO of Can Territory NIT, and president of GeoLibres Argentina, organization dedicated to promoting and developing free geospatial technologies in the country. In the public sector, he held key roles such as data engineering manager of the city of Buenos Aires. Ariel, you can begin now, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My presentation starting. I am introduction. I am all running urbanization world, smart city, and involving yet through innovation implies engaging citizens to share the urban environment. Today we will explore how urban simulation and imagines can promote meaningful social participation in city planning, leading to more inclusive, sustainably, and really smart city. And I'm liking it was lucky to start with the evolution of the user needs. We began with two needs for territory information. This helps us know where to go, how to move, on how to make basic decision our transporter, border, and land manager. So we understand this was no way enough, so ways standing to add more layers and to territory information. This helping us to data analysis for pest control, planning, and urban development. This is no geographic information system we once, but this is was still no fine where state and almost real-time information. This alone is know what is happening in the area or specific in a city. They serve the concept to the smart city, no? Where is digital twin allows to predict before and simulate and grow and use the AI technique allow urban code, building information model, 3D and scenario simulation. And let's start with one of these barriers. In urban code, layers, maps, and process, how do you when connect well to governments? Today, is more municipality on city hall. There is a urban core land that is represented on the map. They are also a set of process to that must the applicate to ask the key question: what can do you my parcel or blow online? The question was good planning solving. Will you do this mainly by create tool for professionally and real estate development, improvise process to digitalizations, open data, should the work community can know what they can do you train in the parcel. And but this is no artists allow different areas of government needs to work together to access information and roles. This integration allow for end-to-end flow to involve information and process part and allow to start collection data for decision making. Thanks to the system, what you use to the 45 days of bureaucrat process is now solved with a single click in the parcel on the map. How do we design the solution? First is what's very important for use to make everything open source. This helping user easy access to code and the LG synergy in the process. An additional, we use to the digital twin paradigms. This not only helps us developing predicts capacity, but also lets us create the platform improves in is in interaction with other systems and environment the smart city to new horizon. And to achieve this weight using predicts cadastral data, precise cadastral data and restitution photogrammetry flag at the city's urban code. Now we explain more about the specific process that's the correct resume research to visualizations. The challenge we find was the transformation of this information into another with time of the information that led to the application of the paradigms like digital twin. Here, we are to go in applied platform over this live Ciudad 3D for the government Buenos Aires, and I can access for QR the platform implementations for digital twin, and this is Luján 3D platform. This is municipality of the Luján de Cuyo, Mendoza, province, and Argentina. This other challenge was an internal process of the NBI 3D platform. This is metropolitan region of the Buenos Aires, Argentina. You can possibility these are features that we consider to generate the artificial intelligence AC generation of urbanistic scenarios, environments, variable, and rest to feature you can see here. With this, all this, we could advance this development of the concept platform to digital twin platform. At the core of the methodology of platform, we focus on structure for the artificial engineering, intelligent engineering. This led us to development of the urban planning meta language for the scenario generator, organized into three mode components: graphics layer, urban element, and filter rails. The structure allow us create of robust and flexible system to analyze and simulation many urban scenarios, facility more efficient and accurate planning of the smart city. In this initial version, we developed an urban planning meta language that contemplate these key elements. At the present, what we consider will expand on the evolve the framework by incorporating new component and new concept. This approach allows you to create a solid and adaptable fundus for intelligent urban planning system. And the same time, we maintain the necessary flexibility to integrate future innovation and emerging requirements in the field urban development. And always thinking about of the interoperability process, we designed the platform with the API for RT smooth integration of the process in scalability. We can use Graph interface, for example, work for SNI generate and how you can configure it to analyze the different alternatives that are generate new scenarios and new implementation for the urban code. Additional, we can visualize, and visualize it, for example, the interaction. Excuse me. For example, the interaction among three municipalities of Buenos Aires metropolitan area. These visualizations allow us to interact with several context variables such as population, education, and urban planning, and those others. This functionality facilitates a comparative of details analysis on different urban reality with the same metropolitan region and provides us evaluate tool for planning and decision maker in the field of integration urban deployment. I can see for different barrier and the different implementation the urban code, for example, in the cross for the school and the cross for the popular assignment and the different barriers in the territory. In conclusion, the implementation of this process bring number of benefits. What is the government and the community in general think advance allow us the continuous improve urban life for people and their environment, promotion of more sustainability and participate deploy of our city. So, in short, we explain the participatory smart city modeling empowers citizens to share their urban environment, combine open source principle, digital twin technology, and AI-driven scenario generate. Thank you for time, and I look forward of collecting contribution to this vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Dario. Next, we will hear from Professor Luciana Royer. Luciana is a professor at the Architecture and Urbanism School of the University of São Paulo. She coordinates the Housing and Human Settlements Lab, and is deputy coordinator of the National Institute of Science and Technology for Housing and City Production. Previously, Luciana joined technical teams in municipal and federal public administration in Brazil, such as Caixa Econômica Federal, it's a bank, federal bank, and the National Secretariat of Urban Programs at the Ministry of Cities. Luciana Royer, please go ahead.
Hello, thank you, Professor Machado. I want to say hello to everyone. And just a quick start. I'm happy to be here with all of you, and especially with my colleague and friend, Professor Samuel Musna, with Fernanda and Professor Vaz, whose work and career I admire. And I'm not an academic scholar on the subject of participation, but I'd like to bring you today a very, for me, a very beautiful and important experience from the Research, University Extension and Technical Services Laboratory that I coordinate, LabHub. And this experience made me think that we really need to take a closer look at the interface of certain technologies in the participatory construction of public policies. I just show a presentation for you, just very brief, in order to explain a little bit more what I want to talk. Some inputs for discussion in the case of habitates that we call. And the LabHub, this Housing and Human Settlements Research Laboratory, was founded almost 25 years ago and aimed to integrate teaching, research, and continuous learning activities at a single space. And we have this kind of priority to formulate alternatives for housing and environmental needs, favoring social inclusion. Researches, projects, and workshops developed with municipalities, community, and social movements. This is very briefly what we aim to, and the team is made up by professors, grad and undergrad students, researchers, other professionals, and we are very proud to be part of it. And some very quick images, someone old and someone new, to show you the academic environment of these researchers. And in the next week, we will have these urban favelas, and the urban favela will be very important for us. We are really, really proud of it also. It's a very committed international seminar that we are trying to bring together all the practitioners that have this kind of contribution in that theme. Okay, and so the case of habitates is important for us because they could bring some important highlights of the use of familiar technologies in traditional medias. So this is why we want to show you this kind of experience here. Just a little moment, and then I try to explain a little more about this. So what's happened with the habitates is we want to broaden the interaction and buy-in of residents regarding what it's gonna reflect in the renovations to be made, improving the legitimacy of the intervention. This is why we want to try this intervention, and this is why I want to show this to you. And this is also a mechanism for architects to check the correctness of the housing improvement proposal in a kind of thing like look how it's going to look, and it's really what you are imagining to the population in time in this exactly field. Okay, and the habitats coordinators. It's not me, I coordinate the laboratory. It is Professor Caio Santoamore and Professor Karina Leitão. They both are totally in a mess due to the Urb Favela that starts tomorrow. And so I'm bringing here some of the experience that they faced with this 1 year experience in Diadema. Okay. Sorry. The habitates is a kind of experience that combines theory, practice, and direct action in the territory. It was 1 year of intense training with graduate level, with 20 students that are already have a bachelor in architecture, and they did 500 metric and social surveys in the Gazusa housing neighborhood in Diadema, São Paulo. This Gazusa neighborhood was previously what we called a favela without intervention. By now, they have already the infrastructure that is important to have, but their houses need this kind of improvement. And this is what the Diadema government wants to do, a housing improvement program. And this housing improvement program needs a kind of proximity from architects and urbanists to go to be with the population and with the public policies. And the public policy, the municipality in Brazil are not very strong in terms of capacity of state capacities. And so this kind of relationship that we bring together with this course was very important in order to gain strength to the municipality in order to have this improvement projects individualized, 500 of them, with these students that are already also at the same time doing a kind of master, as we can say. This is a specialization course in technical advice for urban and housing improvement. Okay. It will be so many things about this, so many things that I would want to say to you, but it's not possible by now. I just want to show you some of course, they are very professional doing so with the municipality. Each of the houses are studied, and each of the family were consulted, and it was very interesting, a process that take long, 1.5 years almost, and it was very interesting to see. We have this kind of the university dean search for us and trying to understand best how we can, as a university, do something like that, and how it was very important also to show this, how we can do this service learning in other situations also, okay? So I want very briefly to show some quick videos showing how traditional technologies could surpass some problems of design communication, showing to the families how interesting could be their rooms, solving the problems previously faced inside of this house. And we have kind of problems to communicate with simple designs sometimes, and then very, very simple videos, quick videos, just like this, could show to the families and could show to the architects also if they are doing correctly the project, and if the family are understanding and trying to agree with this kind of refurbishment or improvement in their houses also. And as you can see, some of these rooms are in very poor situation, and this kind of improvement, it's necessary and should not be done with this infrastructure program that are from outside the houses. This improvement is from inside the houses, and in the way, the correct way to do is just looking at the possibilities that each house has and the problems of each house has also. Another one, and just for you to understand the problems and the necessities that we have to face this kind of of intervention. And what's interesting to say to you is that these kind of quick videos could be shown in the cell phones, and also in some of tablets and the cell phones in the field, and the population could see it, and the architect could see also if this exactly it's going to work or not. It's very quick, very simple, and a kind of traditional technology, just improving the capacity of the design to communicate this kind of interventions. And what I want to tell to you is perhaps the case of Optatis shows an effective way of using technology for me. And the problem with the smart cities and the technologies for me as a practitioner, and by now running a lab, is to objectifying the participant and turning technology into a subject when it's totally the opposite, okay? When there's no effective interaction between the state and the population, and between the practitioners and the population. And perhaps I'm trying to advocate here that's more important than to be the real interaction, not exactly the technology between this kind of interaction. But of course, I show here how we can very simply make an upgrade of the communication and improve the participation and the legitimacy of some of interventions. It's very quick and a kind of very briefly way. I want to show this to you in order just to have a quick conversation. I hope that I could help the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Roya. We will follow to the next presentation. I would like to invite Professor Samuel Musner to share his perspective. Professor Samuel Musner leads the Special Planning Sustainability Working Group at the Institute of Geography of the University of Münster, addressing questions of sustainability and planning from a geographical perspective. His research focuses on the transformation of cities and regions, governance, and participation. He has conducted a research on eco-cities and sustainable urban development, and is the co-author of Adventures in Sustainable Urbanism, published by Sunny Press. Professor Musner, can you begin your presentation, please?
Okay, thank you very much for introducing me. That was very kind, and thank you very much for being part of the group and for contributing to the discussion. I'm very excited to hear these two presentations, and I really liked the presentations. That particularly the last one, which I'm both, of course, but in the last one there was just more like technology becomes like a facilitator or a communicative language to facilitate between these people, and this is actually very close to my own research. I'm a bit struggling with the presentation. I try to oh yeah, that works. So my talk is not about technology in a narrow sense. It's more about participation, and I'm in the glad position and the friendly position for myself that I can be a critical researcher, criticizing or observing participation processes here in Münster, for instance, but not being charged of doing it myself. It's very comfortable and very academic. My talk is about the future of digital urban participation, and it's kind of the idea that it brings us towards a post-political planning practice, or what many researchers call a post-political planning practices. And I believe that digitalization will not help us to overcome the main problems attached to participation, which is recognition and politics. And here I could stop my talk, but I try to go a little bit more into details. So I think it's worth going back if we talk about planning and urban planning and participation, that we are aware that this is a very, very old debate we are embedded in. I was just finding here this colleague from Aachen, Klaus Selle, who mentioned in a very early article, it's already more than 10 years ago, that he was kind of surprised that this old topic is not that, but it's still here. And indeed, if you go then further, you see that there are a lot of urban planning and experimental approaches to urban planning that are participatory, and we have an increasing number of participation processes going on in Germany. And basically, you cannot plan anything if it's not participatory in a way. It's very fashionable, particularly when it comes to questions of sustainability transformation and the idea of a green city, then automatically you think about participatory formats. And they all inherit in a way the desire to experiment new solutions to very old problems, I would argue. When it comes to academia, it's kind of the same thing. You cannot find any research if you do not incorporate any participatory tools. Mostly, it's very fashionable right now, experimental forms of planning, and so research in that realm also is more and more linked to applied science, and particularly in this context, KI or artificial intelligence, and digital tools are very welcome, of course. If we talk about participation, it should also be aware that participation, in a way, is also included in our legal framework, at least in what we call here the Baugesetzbuch. But there are different perspectives of participation, and that's one of the first points I want to mention here. While the legal framework talks about informing these people about general objectives and purposes of planning, and giving them the opportunity to provide their comments and to discuss a little bit the plan, which is already fixed. Very early publications, already in 61, like here Jane Jacobs, have mentioned and have understood a very different understanding of participation compared to that legal framework. She writes in 61, in East Harlem, where after terrible disruption and population turnover, an effective district is slowly reformed against great odds. 52 organizations participated in a 1960 pressure meeting to tell the mayor and 14 of its commissioners what a district wants. So really, we had already had that way of participation. But then she adds also, it is ridiculous to consider that our great cities, various, vital, and ever-changing, should depend for rebuilding on a handful of authorities and huge builder barons. And I think that's the point, actually, where we see that we should distinguish between the way we participate and the way politics is made, or the political way of decision making. And I think to stress this out, I would like to stress this out a little bit by drawing on the theory of planning, and when we talk about communication and when we talk about the example of Luciana, then I mean, quasi immediately it comes to my mind all that literature of communicative planning. And I think Innes, Healy, Huxley, and all these authors have had a very big contribution to the idea of planning when they try to overcome the very formless and categorical planning system by bringing and adding more communicative ideas of planning, just to understand planning as dialogue between different positions, that they try to critique the the idea of representation in systemic planning, and try to give a response to an increasing overburdening and overwhelming of the traditional planning instruments. So in other words, participatory approaches and participatory tools always try to make planning easier, approachable, make it a little bit, try to explain the weird and complex planning system to the people outside. So in that context, all these tools and approaches, they promise to foster social engagement. And it's particularly the case today when we talk about smart cities, then we promise in a way that we could foster social engagement and social justice by digital and digitalization, digital tools. Aiming at a quasi-consensual solution to urban conflicts. And my point is, this is one perspective, and there are other perspectives which I think are very important too. Here's a picture which is unfortunately in German. I couldn't find it in English, and I didn't have time to translate everything, but I can quickly explain it to you. It's very easy and low level. I usually show it to my first year students. Just focus on the right part where it's written participation from the perspective of citizens. Usually you have the red part, which is more about information, and maybe there is a decision and then you can comment on a decision, or you can bring just like participate in some processes. But if you go on the more yellow part, then there's a different realm of participation, which is more about civil self-organization, activism, and the idea that citizens can really take decision within a democratic system. So that's another important aspect where we should recognize that participation is a huge thing. It's not there is this participation. What is the problem attached to the technical idea of participation, which is often used and practiced here around? I think it's four. It's about the inclusion and the representation, the question who is or is not included in participatory processes, and who is accepted or recognized as a citizen. It's also about the appropriate instruments, that we should ensure that tools and methods are really suited for the purpose of the participation, the idea of participation which we have here. It's also about the organizational framework, the structure and the processes for participation, and the spatial context. As geographer, I'm always about spatial context, of course. This is also not only about distribution, so who is included, but also about the way what space, what kind of role does space play here. You see the picture here, which is one of the typical German and Münster-based participatory events. And you see some younger people, they were all my students. I forced them to go there. Otherwise, you would have come back to the matter of inclusion and representation. You have basically elderly people who have free time to go to these events, and my students and myself as a profession. So it is all about and that's talking with Eric Swingerto, a geographer from England, in Manchester. He says it's all about the administration, the management of processes whose parameters are defined by consensus socio-scientific knowledges. And I would like to give you an example what that mean, and this example is from Münster. I was involved as a citizen and maybe an academic, but it was basically about one of the new model neighborhoods. The city of Münster is growing. It's a growing city, so they try to plan 5 new neighborhoods in the north west and the southeast. And if we go into the invitation to that collaborative planning workshop I attended, it's now 1 year ago, it says urban qualities such as compact urban structures, density and mixed use, social and cultural diversity, vibrant public spaces with a high quality of stay, all as well as abundant greenery extending into the surrounding Münsterland park landscape. These are the defining features of Münster. So everything is beautiful, of course. And then they say the new model neighborhoods, about which we were supposed to decide, surrounding the city center in the northwest and southeast, are designed to establish close spatial interrelations with the city center, complementing it with metropolitan flair, new urbanity, and even greater diversity. And add that even greater diversity in a city which is not really diverse, by the way. We are very academic, small provincial city. In this way, a future-oriented and interconnected city is created, offering even higher quality and life attractiveness. And then they ended the letter, please come and participate to our workshop where it is about how these model neighborhoods should look like. Here it is. So it's very close actually to the university. It's supposed to be a mixed neighborhood. So also basically in the middle of our university campus. It's not really campus, but if you've been here to Münster, it is a more a neighborhood, a part of the city where many academic facilities are based. So I went there and I saw that it is a kind of a collaborative urban design workshop. We the citizens, which by the way were most academics, were divided into 5 groups, and I was within the group of mobility and transportation, discussing the ideas of mobility concept for these neighborhoods. We were moderated by experts in the field, basically from planning agencies and urban planning, and they used a very reduced idea of a tool of which you can see here in the picture, which is called planning for real. Planning for real means that you take this map, you construct a model, and you planners know it better than me, the geographer. But yeah, it usually takes a lot of time, more than just one afternoon. But in our case, Fabian Sattler, who designed and organized as a contractor to the city of Münster, that event, reduced that to one afternoon. One day, actually. In the morning, there were more planning agencies or more experts invited from Milan, Copenhagen, Berlin that explained to us in the beginning how a good planning and sustainable world should look like. So we were actually very active during the day, spent the whole time, and particularly in my group, we debated a lot about the idea of carlessness and reduced mobility of car mobility in a neighborhood. And there was a big debate going on. And actually, we came to kind of a, well, we were hardly fighting. We did not model that much because we were so much debating whether it should be car-free, so without cars, or it should be just reduced, a little bit of cars, or cars which you do not see because they park on the ground and so on. So at a certain point, the moderator of our group started to build the model by herself because she mentioned at a certain point, we need to do something, otherwise we cannot present it. And we had to present this actually, not just our bullet points or our ideas, but also our models. And then our model was very basic because we were more discussing. Our discussions were not represented, neither in the bullet points here and the ideas on that, on the post-its, nor in the models. But I think it was a very relevant and a very important discussion, which represents a lot the society here currently, like understanding and debating, discussing about the mobility transition and urban transformation. So about how our society should transform. It's not represented in these models. These models were then presented by the city of Münster, was kind of reduced, the context was kind of reduced, and then behind closed, that's why it's not a good, I couldn't photograph that, it's just taken from, the pictures taken from the webpage of the city of Münster. Behind closed doors, the experts in the field discussed what to do now and what to do with that result of the participation. And then they continued to develop the planning process. So from my theoretical perspective, which might differ from others, but that's mine, this is more what we debate in agonistic or antagonistic planning theory as a post-political participation process. The idea of the critique of the post-political is that that relevant debates and questions are reduced to a ostensibly consensual social arrangement. And by doing so, we suppress the dissent of society. We don't give it space. We are not widening the borders of what is possible to say and what's not possible to say. In the words of Jacques Rancière, a French political philosopher who has written extensively about this post-political critique, he says, this disagreement, this dissent, is the conflictual, the sensual moment. The conflict between people who say the same word in the same time, but do not understand the same thing by it. So a classical discursive mismatch. He argues that consensus is maintained by police measures, and he doesn't mean the police, like the literal police. He says it's all these norms, all these orders, all these introductory letters we got, where we got invited to participate in the very diverse city, in the very beautiful city. But also the building code, but even more the entire managerial apparatus, including planning experts that gave us these talks about, including all these agencies that constitute the complex post-political governance and participation process. So it's very theoretical, but in fact, it says participation, whether it's analog or it's digital, it's often reduced to the management and non-negotiation of significant problems. Participation, whether analog or digital processes, are grounded in market mechanisms. We should understand and be aware of these and highlight these if we can. The challenging question about participation, particularly with referring to digital mechanisms and tools, is how do we overcome these limits? And this is not a question which is attached to what technology do we use, or is it whether it's digital or not. It's about to understand that algorithms and digital tools are always embedded into politics. And we need to understand that participation is a political process and it's not apolitical as it often looks like. So very short remarks, very short example. I hope my point was kind of clear, and I'm looking forward to discuss and debate this together with you to live the descent of these ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samuel Musner. I will do some remarks before to open for the questions. We have here 21 people in our conversation. If someone has a question, please write in the chat here. Yeah, and so I will start to comment the presentation of Ariel. I think it was very inspiring, very interesting presentation. We know that open source is very important for transfer, technology transfer, to audit how the systems works, etc. But my question for Ariel, you know, not to answer now. Yeah, I will think about this question in the other comments for the other presentations. Is open source working well? Because normally we have we need a community of developers. We need people engaged. The idea of open source is very interesting, but the need of community is more important than the open source of the code. If there is not participation, you cannot develop too good the code. Yeah? The idea of replicability is very interesting, that you can use the same code from Buenos Aires in other cities and develop some forks or new features. I would like to know more about it, if it is working well, since your experience.
Yes, yes. In
Wait.
Okay.
I do all. I think it's better that you comment all presentations and then you start to reply. Thanks. So the idea of replication is very interesting for the case of Diadema, the Diadema city. Luciana tell the history of this favela. It was a wonderful work. Yeah, I follow some notice about this project. Been very interesting. It's costing money, costs a lot of work, and I think my question is something the same for Luciana Royer. It's possible to replicate this experience in other cities? What was the interest from other municipalities? What did you get from this experience? What you can do for this experience? The idea of to work with other cities or to make it this technology, because there is a social technology, because it's difficult uh, to work with communities, because you have to understand the culture, to respect the limits. You said very well about it. How it could work in other environments, other contexts. If you can tell something about it, would be very interesting to hear. And about the dilemma of participation. I think Professor Moser brings some very interesting questions. We have new technologies, but all the issues about participation. There are different perspectives of civil society and the governments. The governments, when my experience in open government partnership, we have my research group and me. We have a lot of engagement, or where we write something about our experience, participate as academy in the process of open government, the level of the national level, in the local level of São Paulo city, when there is many problems, because the government has a expectative about the participation. They have a plan, they wait, does everything work well. They say, come on people, come on to the workshop, go to the platform. But the more important moment is the decision-making process. And the people who, the citizens are waiting for feedback. When the government do not give a good feedback, it could be very bad for social participation. It's a really problem in Brazil. We have very bad experience because the process were not enough transparent in the high level, when the government have to decide. This moment was closed, and then come deceptions about the process. It's a very dilemma. But the end of presentation, Meusner said about how the new technologies could fix it, or they could face the limits of participation. It's a very good question in the moment, because we have a lot of use of IA. We have a new technology. You can say generative IA is a older level IA. We use IA since the beginning of the internet in different levels, but generative IA really could improve the social participation, or the participation of individual using the chat, empower the individual. It's a question that you'd like to do for all panelists. How you see the IA or the generative IA to solve the problems of the civil society participation, or in the level of individuals? Really, the generative IA could do something important this way, or the generative AI bring more risks than opportunities, like manipulation, problem with the privacies, problem with algorithmic bias. There are a lot of risks. It's important to decide if we could use generative AI for public participation or not yet. What do you think about it? So I'd like to start with Ariel in the order of the presentations, and then we'll look at the questions of the public.
Okay,
Please.
thank you. Thank you, Short. I think the AI needs the good data for be able to generate information and solution. In fact, I know generate good data, good metadata, and generate new rules like to implementation the AI only in AI. I'm not good the controller result controller. I think the is now in today is all AI technology is open source, no? Is the library and the solution and other private sector solution, no? I think is the general new solution in open source for we community, very important for evolution the smart city and digital twin city and the people for the centrally in the solution.
Thank you, Zariel. And Luciana, please.
Yes, thank you, Professor Jorge, for the questions and also from the questions from the chat. Yes, it's possible to replicate this experience, but one of the objectives of this important experience was exactly the training of professionals, yes? And I think I could not explain very well, but this initiative was coordinated by LabIAB, okay, but it was a partnership with the Diadema City Council, Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the São Paulo Council of Architecture and Urbanism, also CAU São Paulo, and the technical consultancy PEABIRU. The main focus of the course was to train professionals to work in the field of social housing with a pedagogical proposal that combined theory, practice, and direct action in the territory. But also the municipality of Diadema was truly involved, and with this we could replicate it. And other municipalities who are really interested in doing so. But I want to highlight something here in order to think about the teaching perspectives of this of the architecture, urbanism, and urban planners. We are changing that, but the teaching of architecture and urbanism in Brazil has always been far removed from the Brazilian reality in general terms. Okay, even the prospect of urbanizing slums rather than eradicating them is relatively recent, both in terms of public policy and in terms of architectural teaching. The experience I've shown here tries to provide a positive use of this technology and tries to provide also a way out of Professor Mösner debates, because frankly, it's the debate that matters to me on this subject. And I want just to highlight this, and it's very important that the municipality and the state could have this in hands, and also the population should be, and the communities should be integrated in all of this public process of improvement also. It's very, very important. But what I want to highlight here is the commitment of the professionals, of the students, and how we can raise and inform these professionals to do what I call the right thing. This is a real transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Luciana Hoyer. And Professor Mösner, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much for these questions, and thanks for the question in the chat. First of all, thanks for the link of the English language, what's the name? Participation pyramid. I will save this for future talks. Sorry for not having found us. Coming back to the, it's a very, I mean, there were two questions, one from you and one from the chat, which I would like shortly to comment on it. I cannot really answer it, but I think participation coming, so your question, participation and politics, and my idea, my very easy idea is about the public debate and the limits, to broaden the limits and to challenge the societal orders and to advance and to transform in a very old-fashioned way. And I think artificial intelligence cannot do this for us. So they cannot, and artificial intelligence cannot help us here at that point. It can facilitate in terms of languages. And I really like said, this is very interesting what Luciana showed us. But in that point, I think it's very interesting tools we can use, but it will not solve the problem of participation. And this is something we as a society have to do. And we have to understand. So that's my opinion on that and my comment. And then there was the other one, which was about the sure. I mean, from the chat, sure, we should distinguish and understand that we have different realities, not only within continents and countries, but also within cities and within different groups of societies. I totally share this. The threat of predatory capitalism is something which is kind of global, I would argue. I would say it looks different at different pages of our global book, but it is the story and the narrative is kind of the same. And actually, while we have had these participatory events about how that over there model neighborhood should look like, we do not have any participatory ideas of how do we deal with what you call the predatory capitalism in our housing, in our built environment, in our housing stock. And I mean, this is something we could, of course, debate here in Germany. The question how important, or what is the role of providing housing, and what is the role of capitalism within that? We do not debate this here in Germany either. Maybe in Berlin a little bit. Berlin is always a little bit different, more advanced, as the Berliners would say, but not here in Münster.
Sorry. Thank you, Professor Messner. We have some questions in chat. I will read it here. Just a moment. Renata Borges wrote, the solution presented by Professor Ariel mentions blocks and lines and other geometrical concepts typical of Latin American cities representative of Spanish colonization, typically in a grid design. Is the solution easily applied to cities originated in Portuguese colonial areas, typically in a star design? Can areas be easily defined with arbitrary shape? Do the algorithms in the solution all accept arbitrary shapes? So for Ariel, I think is just this question. Ariel, can you reply? Renata?
Yes, and the solution for basic general meta language is possibly the definition new object. An object, for example, a star or object typical grid, and no limitation for the blocks or the lines, and I can additional new component in the meta language. I'm the sharing for the repository in the code, the project the Ciudad 3D for Buenos Aires in the chat, and the platform and the code repository.
Ariel, to reply, we have other question from Renata Borges to Professor Hoyers. Professor Hoyer presentations mentioned an interaction between architects and favela dwellers. Is this interaction typically initiated by the dwellers themselves, or do they happen only when a student has a favela in the scope of his or her research? How can we increase the participation of favela dwellers in the urbanistic decision-making that affects them? Would it be a good idea to combine architecture scholarships with microcredit for favela dwellers to improve their residence?
I think I had talked a little bit about that, but what's important here is that the Diadema City Council Department of Housing and Urban Development, the Diadema municipality, was truly interested and committed with this kind of program, and has also another ones in other neighborhoods in the municipality. Without the commitment of the municipalities, it's very hard to go further with this kind of initiatives. Of course, these scholarships from the São Paulo Council for Architecture and Urbanism, it's very important also. They have a kind of money that could do this scholarship. But without the municipality, without the state, will be, for me, a kind of intervention that could not be go much further on, and will be a kind of intervention that shows a kind of virtuous commitment, but could not address the real challenges of the population and the real problems that we have. This is something that must be done with the state and the municipality. With all the problems of the debate of Professor Musner highlighted, but of course it's very important for us.
Thank you, Professor. And we have other question from Renata Borges again. Professor Musner, I think Professor Musner did a reply, more or less, of this question, but I will read it because Renata Borges did a comparison between Brazil and Germany situation. Okay, I will read. Professor Mosner mentions post-political planning, but one could argue that current urban planning in Brazil suffers from predatory capitalism, which clearly are dominated by actors motivated only by their financial self-interest. Considering politics as a discussion about the public things, res publica, therefore, we in Brazil are in the pre-political stage. Shouldn't our concern to increase popular participation eminently in politics, especially in reaction to predatory capitalism? Would you agree that the challenges in Germany are very, very different from the challenges in Brazil, and Brazil should first achieve the political stage before going to post-political one?
Shall I just quickly, I I already did in a way. So again, I would say it's a different melody, but the same song around the world. And I could have also referred to other examples from Münster, where I think we had very problematic situations due to an investor not taking his responsibility. By law, planning is based on the idea of what we call Gemeinwohl, so like a like a common good. And I would say in very few times I can really see this. And very often I see that we have, of course, interests of growth. I would enlarge this a little bit to economic growth, not only capitalism. We have economic interests and growth interests that come first. I think that's all around the world. It's not only, and it's very complex, of course. It's not to say that it's just capitalism, but it's more a complex situation. But again, my idea would be different melodies, same song. And by the way, post does not mean pre-post. It's just like we have decision making beyond the political debates. Very technocratic, very expert driven. Yeah, this is what post means. I hope it was clear. I don't know.
Thanks, Samuel Mosner. In Brazil, we say generally the first name, Samuel, Fernanda, etc. I think there's no problem for us to you say the first name, like George, yeah, just to say, because we have these different cultures. Yeah. I'm very happy to stay here, to hear all insights. Yeah, I learn a lot of things. I think the Ariel, Patricia, Luciana, sorry, could bring in very interesting cases, and I would like to know a little more about Buenos Aires planning model and the how works this open source community. And I think I would like to know a little more. So could be interesting for us. I think for all the people here in the webinar to see photos from the favela in Diadema before or now, yeah, and after, because it's very inspiring this experience. And I think it's Samuel has a very, very interesting perspective. Yeah, very critical perspective of social participation. And I think the problem is almost the same in Brazil, in Germany, and we have a participatory process. And especially when this process is through workshops, is face to face, we can see the civil society organizations where you can find very specialist people. They have intelligence. They could make pressure on the governments, etc. But we look at the citizen, the normal citizen, is very complicated to take a part of participative process because they need time. They need knowledge. They need to know the grammatic of the participation, the grammatic of the government. It's really very, very difficult. And in the end, the participation will be a very limited process for few people. It's a really problem. Maybe the generative AI will bring something new in this field, but we don't know. The generative AI will bring a lot of risks as well. It's difficult to say something, but I'm very happy to hear our presentations. Well, I would like to hand it back to Fernanda to make the closing remarks. Thank you very much again.
Thank you, Jorge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Mosner, Luciana, and Ariel. And well, it was a very insightful discussion. Of course, we have underlying all these issues also the questions about data governance and how which data these imaging technologies are relying on to generate images, who gets to influence their design, the design of the tools, and what criteria determine the types of images that are being generated by these tools. So these kinds of issues we have been discussing in all these sessions, and this was a very interesting dive into the urban planning discussions and all the conflicts and questions underpinning this. So before we wrap up, just a quick reminder that this was the third of the sessions. You can review it, and we can review the previous sessions in our website. And I hope to see you all in the next event, which will take place in the 10th December. And we have this other thought-provoking issue that is also a very critical issue in the field, which is this idea of citizens as sensors, this idea that citizens can generate data, but sometimes they can generate data consciously or aware of the situation. Of sometimes we can talk about data extractivism. We can talk about data being generated by our devices without our knowledge about it. So this idea of citizens as a sensor and what relationship it has with participation is the next topic. So I would like to thank you all and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next session. Thank you.
Bye, Fernanda.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernanda.
Obrigado.